Hello everyone, and welcome to our 10th Skills Workshop Virtual Careers Fair. For those of you who have been here before and followed the programme since June, welcome back. And to joining for the first time, welcome. I'm your host, Neko Jindu, at LaSalle, and along with 60 different firms, we created the Skills Workshop to give you the skills, knowledge and insight to prepare for a career within asset management. They were created to increase application success. And as a reminder, all of these sessions are free to register and the details are in the chat box. Our virtual careers fair is like no other. Over the months of September and October, we are featuring 40 different firms every single day for 1 hour. Each telling you what they do, how they hire, and what skills you need to demonstrate to stand out from the other applicants to be successful. It's a crazy competitive world out there, guys. And tonight's firm is my very own firm, LaSalle. Joining us today are my colleagues, Jenny, Freddie and Lucy. Between us, we will introduce our firm and talk about what we do, different areas of our business. Many people know about front office, portfolio management, sales. There are so many other areas. Lucy will then touch on our programs and how you can apply, the deadlines and any other useful bits of information you need to differentiate your application. So please listen carefully, and this will be packed with tips and tricks for you to be successful. And if I can then ask my team to introduce themselves very briefly, just tell us what you do, a little bit about yourself, and if I can start with Jenny, then Freddie, then Lucy.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and I have been at LaSalle for about 2 years, having joined the summer internship program initially in 2019 and now as an analyst in the GPS team.
Hi everyone, my name is Freddie Davies. I've been at LaSalle pretty much bang on 3 years now, starting on the graduate scheme, and now I'm a senior analyst in our separate accounts team.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy Cosbrook. I work within our European HR team. I look after all recruitment across LaSalle Europe, and I also manage all of our graduate and intern programs. And I've been with LaSalle about 5 years now.
Okay, thank you everyone. And let me introduce myself really quickly, a little bit about me. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Neko Jindu. I've been in the business for about 11 years, and I'm an associate director in our asset management team, focusing on business-based assets, i.e. office and industrial properties. Okay, great. Now that you all know who we are, a quick reminder, this is a webinar. We won't see your faces, but please use the Q&A function to ask us any questions. At the end of our presentation, we'll try to get through as many of your questions as possible. So without further ado, as usual, please grab your pen and paper and let's get into tonight's workshop. Freddie, if you mind sharing the screen. So firstly, I'll briefly set out our company background before handing over to Jenny, Freddie and Lucy for the remainder of the presentation. Next slide, please. LaSalle is one of the world's leading real estate investment managers, and for over 40 years, we've built long-term and trusted relationships with our global clients, wherever they are and wherever they invest. We have $75 billion of global assets under management. We have 22 local offices in 15 countries and over 850 employees across the globe. Next slide. And this next slide better illustrates our global coverage with offices in the major markets in North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Next slide. In addition to our wide global coverage, LaSalle also offers a wide range of products to suit our investors' objectives, falling into the following categories. Separate accounts, and these are customized mandates that meet the individual investment objectives of different clients around the world. Commingled funds, which are open and closed-ended funds, offering investors a strategic focus on attractive regions, styles, and sectors. We have LaSalle Global Partner Solutions, otherwise known as GPS, which are customized global and regional indirect real estate investments and funds, joint ventures, co-investments, and secondaries. And Jenny will talk about GPS in more detail shortly. And global real estate securities, which are actively managed global real estate securities programs offering diverse investment options. Next slide, just to summarise, at LaSalle we are focused solely on real estate, and this enables us to deliver competitive investment performance along with the highest levels of client service for all our clients. Now let me hand over to Jenny, who will explain a bit more about real estate investment management. Jenny?
Thanks, Neka. So let's just start simply by saying, what is real estate investment management? So real estate investment management companies raise capital from limited partners, or LPs for short, to acquire, develop, operate, improve, and sell buildings or shares in buildings or property companies in order to generate returns for investors. This is across all real estate sectors. So we're talking retail, office, industrial, and logistics, and then alternatives such as student accommodation, leisure, and hospitality assets. Real estate typically makes up about 5 to 15% of investment portfolios, depending on investor risk appetite. Thanks, Freddie. Who are we talking about when we say LPs or investors? The investor pool or types of investors in real estate ranges from pension funds and institutions or corporates, both locally and internationally, and local and international retail investors or individuals from all walks of life, really. And it could be a combination of these investors who pull together funds to invest collectively in real estate as well. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I think a really good distinction to make from the beginning is that of the difference between direct real estate investment and indirect real estate investment. You can invest directly or have direct ownership in the physical asset, or you can invest indirectly. And what that means is to have a share or interest in a real estate vehicle consisting of multiple assets managed by another firm. So simply put, investments in unlisted or listed real estate funds or companies. These include investments in real estate investment trusts, or REITs for short. At LaSalle, we have both a direct and indirect team. We go to the next slide. As I mentioned earlier, I work in the GPS team. So this is LaSalle's global indirect real estate team. And I've provided some examples of what we do, which really highlights the diverse ownership structures of real estate. So the GPS team invests in funds, both open and closed-ended. They can also we also invest in listed or unlisted across sectors and across regions globally. We have teams that focus on the different regions, and they are based in Asia, Pacific, Europe, and North America. And this is on behalf of clients who are located across the globe. We also look at co-investments as a team, which involves partnering with a fund to access an existing asset or portfolio of assets that's too large for single ownership. We also invest through joint ventures, and the difference really here between co-investments and joint ventures, or JVs for short, is that with joint ventures, we partner with an expert operating or general partner for large transactions, but the ownership would be more 50-50, where co-investments, we typically provide the majority of the equity. And then lastly, we also look at secondary market trades, or secondaries, and that will be the acquisition of units or shares in real estate companies from other investors selling down their positions in usually open-ended portfolios or funds through the secondary market. If we go to the next slide. So this page just gives an idea of the GPS team platform, so the indirect team platform. There are about 35 of us in the team globally. This includes the fund management team, banking, and the operations team. Next slide, please. So if we look at, why do people invest in real estate? There really are a wide range of reasons, but to highlight the main ones, I'll just say, real estate offers both income through the rental received from tenants. So there's constant cash flows over a number of years, depending on the hold period. And it can provide capital return on top of this at the disposal of the asset or assets through portfolio sales at the end of the hold period. So investors typically find the constant and oftentimes stable cash flows attractive, and on average, property values increase over time. So there are potential profits that are distributed once assets are sold. Investors also use real estate for portfolio diversification, which reduces portfolio volatility or risks associated with market shocks over time due to its low correlation with other asset classes. We move to the next slide. So when we talk about the asset life cycle in real estate investment management, I mentioned earlier that investment management entails facilitating the acquisition. So through debt or equity financing, depending on the client requirements and objectives. These objectives are also defined by the sector, geography, strategy, and budget, and very importantly, sustainability. Once the asset or units are acquired, these are then asset managed over the life or holding period of the investment. And this includes driving value depending on the strategy, refurbishments and upkeep, leasing activity, which includes negotiating leases and extensions or negotiating lease extensions. Asset management can also entail the repositioning of assets as well. So this could be in many ways, including changing the use of an asset into something that would bring more value. And at the end of the life cycle or holding period of the assets, asset management also includes facilitating the disposal of these assets. There are many things to consider here, such as assessing whether the business plan for the asset has been fulfilled, and if so, what value can we get at sale? We also have to consider timing the market appropriately. Is now a right time to sell? What will we get? What are the risks? And then how and when will profits, if any, be distributed to our investors or clients? LaSalles process has input from fund management. So this would be at portfolio level, asset management, as I mentioned, asset level, and then research. We have an excellent research and strategy team that keeps us abreast of the market movements and trends, which helps form the investment decisions that we make. And we also have excellent support from our investor relations team who liaise with the clients of the business, help with pitches to clients and capital raising efforts. And we also have the company as a whole's finance team as well. I'll now hand over to Freddie, who will give an overview on fund management.
Evening, everyone. So for some reason, not letting me change the slide. There we go. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of fund management, our asset management team as well, and also sort of some of the key attributes that we look for in sort of people joining at LaSalle. So as Jenny mentioned, fund management is the implementation of a strategy, a pre-agreed strategy with a client. When you apply that to real estate, it's about what do we buy, when do we buy it, what do we do once we are holding the asset, and how do we implement the asset business plan, and then finally, when do we sell? When we think about what skills we need when we have or hiring people into the fund management team, numerical skills are important. If you have modeling skills as well, that's a plus, but not always a necessity. But I'll say this about sort of every team at LaSalle, that people skills go a very, very long way. In real estate, we are out in the market all the time. We're speaking to agents, we're speaking to building surveyors, we're speaking to tenants, and being able to build relationships is really, really important. So if numerical skills isn't your forte, that doesn't mean LaSalle's not the place for you. This slide here just gives you a brief outline on sort of diversification and building a portfolio that Jenny previously mentioned. And this just stresses that when let's say we've got a target of 6%, not every property or every asset is going to do 6%. So diversifying by type of property, the location of the property, the type of tenants that occupy the property, or just the general risk profile of the deal is key to achieving sort of client aims. And that sort of little graphic at the bottom, don't put all your eggs in one basket, is very, very true. So when we're looking at sort of potential acquisitions or deals that we're going to carry out for clients, we could sort of put them in sort of 4 separate buckets, ranging from core plus, value add, and opportunistic. And I'm going to give you a few examples of deals like that. Now, generally clients will say we have a particular target in mind, but how we go about achieving that target varies. So depending on the size of the capital they're willing to invest. So we can have a core mandate for 6 to 8%, but in that we'll have some properties that may fall into the opportunistic bucket. It's also worth mentioning that properties don't stay on those buckets. Those buckets are not as binary as the graph makes out. And so assets move around all the time. And some of our clients who are pension funds have owned properties for 30 or 40 years. And throughout that time, they started in core. And as, let's say, a tenant departs, they become value add, and we have to, or we may need to reposition it. So it's opportunistic. So properties move within those buckets. So, and they're more for guidance than sort of set rules. But hopefully the case studies I'm going to sort of talk through now will give you a better idea. So the first one is of Plumtree Court in London. So this was the largest deal done in LaSalle UK business history. So this is Goldman Sachs HQ in London, which we bought for MPS, which is the Courier's National Pension Service. So bought for over £1 billion. And actually this was a fairly straightforward deal. You have a single tenant occupying a building for a very long time. So modeling that or forecasting what performance is going to be is more straightforward than other deals. It's just a lot of capital to employ in one place. A very big thing that is going on in the real estate world and sort of all financial services is sustainability. And I'll keep talking about this throughout my part of the presentation. And one accreditation is BREEAM, and this is just gives you an indication of how good the sustainability aspect of the building is, and it has a rating of excellent. Another example is 60 London Wall, which is also in the City of London. Now this was bought on behalf of a US pension fund, and you would say falls into sort of a more value add bucket, if we're going to use those terms. And this was effectively purchasing an office that needed a full refurbishment. And the pictures on the right hand side of the slide show the sort of before and after. So we put on 5 new floors on the top. We completely stripped back the building to its frame, and we've repositioned it, and it's currently letting up as we speak. And now this has gone one step further on a sustainability point and achieved a rating of outstanding. And we're definitely noticing that companies are putting their people first, and they want buildings which have all the amenities, have the best ratings and the best sustainability ratings. So this is going very well, and as you can see from the numbers at the bottom, is going to produce quite a healthy profit for the client. Now, we can't always do big, shiny, massive office buildings in the city centres. This is for another client of ours, much smaller scale, but this is an example of an opportunistic deal where we've taken a lot of risk and fortunately delivered. But we bought effectively a plot of land, and we've built 120,000 square foot of industrial space, not a shiny glitzy new office, but your Amazon deliveries are dependent on buildings like this. So we've managed to let it up pretty much as soon as the building of the units finished in July, and we've developed a very healthy profit for the clients. So we spent about 20 million and probably generated about 10 million pounds worth of profit. So that was a really, really good example. I'm just going to quickly jump back to Jenny, who's going to talk you through an example that we have from the indirect side of the business.
Thanks, Freddie. So yeah, this next case is a great example that sort of encapsulates the GPS or our indirect team's capabilities. So this is an open-ended fund which we launched last year, and it's really a one-stop solution for global real estate exposure. So I'll just go through sort of the specs and everything about the fund. So the strategy or the objective is to actually deliver sustainable returns from a diversified portfolio. So diversified both globally and across sectors. It includes investments in funds, so you can call it a fund of funds, but we can also invest in joint ventures and co-investments as well. The investment approach is to combine both public and private, so listed and unlisted, and then debt and equity strategies, targeting an 8% plus net total return. And the risk tolerance or risk profile of the fund is core plus, and the target loan to value, or LTV for short, is 40% or capped at 45%, which is typically in line with what you'd see for a core plus fund. As I mentioned, these investments are across sectors, but with a focus on more resilient property types that are supported by pandemic tailwinds. The important thing to note here as well is that it's not a static sort of allocation to the sectors. It can change depending on what's actually happening in the market. But currently we're focused on logistics, residential and life science and medical offices. To date, this fund has raised over, or we've raised over $300 million globally, and there have been 9 investments plus 19 plus portfolio of 19 securities. The fund has a regional and sector targets that you can see on the right-hand side, and it's pretty much based on where we see the most value. So the fund is targeting about 40% of its capital allocation towards North America, or to investments in North America, 34% to Europe, and 26% to Asia Pacific region. And then in terms of sector focus or sector allocations, you can also see the largest allocation is targeted at well-performing sectors, so such as logistics at 34%, followed by 20% for residential, 15% for alternatives, and also 15% for life science and medical offices, and then 8% to traditional offices and 8% to retail. I've also included just like some examples of some pictures or example investments that you can see at the bottom there as well. But yeah, that's an example for indirect real estate. And with that, I'll hand back to Freddie to talk us through asset management and G.
So I've got to be careful what I say here, as Neka is fairly senior in our asset management team. So if I get anything wrong, I'm sure she'll call me up on it. So the asset management team, whilst this graph kind of shows them sitting below the fund management team, really it's collaborative. So if the fund management deals with everything at a portfolio level, the asset managers are the guys on the ground. So they're the ones who are engaging with the tenants, developing asset business plans, and figuring out how to deliver the required return we need for our clients. And Jenny's mentioned it previously, but there are some examples of what they would do, such as development, refurbishment, dealing with tenants, and repositioning assets. I think if I had to sort of list a few qualities that are really valuable in asset management, is time management. You're often given tens of properties with hundreds of tenants, and knowing what to deal with and when is a very important skill. And once again, you know, being personable is really, really important, you know, and doing that goes a very long way to get third parties that we're using to engage and deliver when we're trying to deliver for our clients. So, you know, the LaSalle church is quite broad, and, you know, most skills are, you know, very, very welcome. So if we kind of move on to just touch on sustainability, as it's getting more and more important, you know, everywhere we look. At LaSalle, we have our 4-pillar framework of climate change, responsible consumption, rewilding, and social value. Now, whatever asset management sort of task we're carrying out, let's say it's development or it's refurbishment, all 4 of these pillars have to be hit. So, and we're constantly looking at ways that we can do more for the environment and just, you know, sustainability in general. So LaSalle has pledged by 2050 to achieve net zero carbon across all our portfolios. And just to try and explain how we're going to achieve that, this graph looks a little complicated, but I'll hopefully try and make it a bit clearer. It starts off in the top left in sort of how we build buildings. Are we using low carbon materials? Are we using the right methods to achieve sort of reduced embodied carbon? It's worth me mentioning that with real estate, you have operational carbon, which is the carbon produced from how the building's used. So what the tenants are doing in the building, and then you have carbon, which is embodied from, you know, let's say the steel that was used to build the building. So we're responsible for both the embodied and the operational carbon. So once we've addressed how we're going to build buildings, we think, right, how can we reduce, or how can we improve energy efficiency? And once we've done that, we look at what are the sources of our energy usage. So are we using renewables, and try and locate them as best we can, whether that's install PV on top of buildings or look for renewables off-site. That's our target. And finally, it's engaging with our tenants to ensure that they're doing the best they can. Now, being realistic that we won't be able to get completely net zero without offsetting, but that is very much the last resort. So I'm just going to quickly touch on one asset management case study which has sustainability sort of at the center, and that's it's a small industrial development down in Portsmouth in the UK, and it's only a £5 million spend to produce we think a £2 million profit, but from a sustainability point of view, we're targeting a BREEAM excellent rating, which for an industrial unit is a very, very good outcome, and also an EPC of A, so that's an energy performance certificate. We are targeting operational net zero carbon through PV usage, and we will be offsetting the requisite amount to achieve sort of net zero carbon on the embodied carbon as well. At the same time, we've got rewilding initiatives where we bought a large amount of land, and some of that is going to be dedicated to rewilding, and we'll also engaging with the local community and how we can create a space which they can use as well. So rather small, but it's an example of what we're doing, what we're going to be rolling out across all our properties. Now, I'm just going to pass over to Lucy, who's going to talk about the important stuff of roles coming up and what we're doing at LaSalle.
Thank you, Freddie. So hi everyone. Yeah, I'm going to just touch on careers at LaSalle. So I'll speak just about some of our opportunities that we have at an intern and graduate level, and any questions that you have at the end, do put them in the Q&A box. So recruitment opportunities at LaSalle give you the chance to work alongside some of the industry's leading real estate investment professionals. So you will gain exposure to all aspects of our business. And we're committed from a culture perspective of creating an environment where you can really learn, grow and achieve your best every day. So our graduate and intern programs provide you with formal training, both internal and external, and really give you on-the-job experience and real sort of responsibility from the outset, which I'm sure Jenny and Freddie can confirm, as they both came through sort of our graduate and intern programs. So for next summer, we have some summer intern opportunities. So firstly, we have our 6-week summer intern London scheme. So this internship is across certain different business areas, so including fund management, asset management, sustainability, as Freddie's touched on, digitalisation, because that's a huge area for our business right now, research and strategy, and debt and value-add investments, to name a few. The programme is 6 weeks long, and we normally launch applications in early 2022. And you will, throughout the 6 weeks, you'll attend sort of several inductions, different site visits, and you really will learn as much as possible about our business throughout the duration of your time with us. We're also, for the first time, participating this year in our 10,000 Black intern scheme. So this scheme is 5 weeks long, also will take place in the summer of 2022. And we've allocated 2 opportunities within our asset and fund management business. And the applications are open now. So I'll make sure to send the link after this presentation so you can check out the application process and where to apply. But it's really exciting that we're participating in that for next year. And then the final intern scheme for the London office is, for the past couple of years, we've partnered with Into University. So we take part in their Big City Bright Future internship program. So it's aimed at 17-year-old students, and it's a 3-week internship. The first week is a training focused on developing your soft skills, such as commercial awareness, teamwork, presentation skills. And then the final 2 weeks, you would be in our LaSalle London office. So you get a better understanding of the day-to-day life of roles in asset and fund management, also working on assigned projects and really interacting with our senior management team. And then for more permanent sort of grad opportunities, next year we will also be launching our debt and value add investment graduate program. So this team specialise in sort of fund capital into structured real estate debt across Europe. So for this program, it is a permanent program, but we do look for individuals to be, really highly numerate, really analytical, and ideally have studied sort of subjects like economics, finance, and maths. We also have a European analyst program, which I also run across our Paris and Munich office. So again, highly analytical, highly numerate graduates, and they rotate across asset management, fund management and transactions. So it gives you a really good understanding within those rotations of what each of those business areas do. And graduates tend to go forward and specialise within one of those groups. And then the final opportunity for graduates within our European business is through Jones Lang LaSalle, who are a parent company. So they run a commercial property programme, and we actually take graduates on rotation to LaSalle for 12 or 6 months throughout the year. And again, they're in sort of our asset and fund management business as well. And then we also, away from our debt and, you know, all our graduate and intern programs, do also look for sort of professional experienced hires, have entry-level analyst roles, not just within, you know, the core part of our business, but also, you know, marketing and research and strategy, global partners and finance as well. So the final slide just highlights some useful links and key dates that, you know, I thought you might want to be aware of. But yeah, if you've got any questions at all, please do pop them in the chat box and I'm happy to answer them. And Neka, over to you. And Neka, I think you're still on mute.
There we go, second time lucky. That's awesome. Thank you very much, Jenny, Freddie and Lucy. Everybody stop sharing the screen. We have a few questions in the Q&A box. There's quite a few a few of you watching this webinar, so please ask us questions. Please don't be shy. We'll take a few of them between us. And like I said, in the meantime, please keep sending us your questions and we'll get through as many of them as possible. Okay, let me go through. Firstly, someone asked Raka asked how it is to work at LaSalle and what are the career options on ESG parameters. I guess we can all take that one by one, but it's great to work at LaSalle. There's a real camaraderie. It's a real family in terms of how I see it in my experience here. And I guess the others can speak to their experiences. But when it comes to career options that are connected to ESG, we have a specific sustainability team, which started off quite small, but is growing as the importance of sustainability grows within real estate. And as Lucy mentioned, there will be an internship option to work in that team as part of our summer internship. And that team will continue to grow. So there will be other general roles in our business, which may not be specific to fund management or asset management. It could be in marketing, it could be in other areas of our business. So if the specific real estate or investment management things aren't your forte from a skill set, there are other things you want to do but still be involved in our industry, then it's not just limited to that in terms of roles and opportunities that come up intermittently at our business. So the next question is from Raphael. He's a second year student and he's studying business administration with a major in finance. And his question is, has COVID-19 impacted our strategies of investing in real estate and how have we reacted to it? I'm going to throw this question to Freddie.
Super. Well, off the bat, when COVID hit, the real estate market effectively stopped trading, at least the direct real estate market. Jenny can comment on the indirect market. And we've definitely seen it open up. From what we're looking at, I think all the trends that existed pre-COVID were still the same. So in the UK, at least, the decline of retail and the advance of industrial. I think a slight change that we've seen in the market has been the rise of life sciences, or at least an increased focus on life sciences, especially sort of in the Oxford-Cambridge arc. Personally, what we're looking to invest in wholly depends on what our clients need. Now, I think it was quite a catchy term that I heard our research and strategy team use, which was carbon arbitrage. So in the sense that take a building, let's say an office building, which is out of date, is got all the wrong systems in place that future potential tenants don't have, and repurpose it into an outstanding building with all the best carbon related credentials, which is what every company is now looking for. So yeah, that's probably the one big trend, is that focus on sustainability.
Excellent, thank you, Freddie. Our next question, sorry, it's really small on my screen, so if I don't see everyone's names, I'll try not to push my face right into the screen. Miguel asks, hi, how is LaSalle's business model affected with more employees opting to work from home? And how is the remote working culture in the next few years going to affect the real estate investment business in general?
I I don't mind taking the work from home element, and maybe
Yeah,
you can jump in on your real estate investment work from home. Look, you know, the last 18 months, you know, has been a complete change for everyone with the COVID pandemic. I think how LaSalle as an organisation have handled it, you know, we obviously were all working from home. Since, you know, certain countries' restrictions have eased, we have encouraged individuals to come back to the office. I think real estate in general is a very collaborative work environment. I do think, you know, it's the type of work we do is sort of better together as such, and being better and being back in the office in person. However, we appreciate that flexibility, and that model is needed going forward. So I do think there is more sort of flex for your day and understanding of people can work from home, and that is something that we are encouraging. But majority of our officers, the line has been, we would like people back in the office for the majority of their working week, but that flexibility is there to work from home if required. And we have all of the IT and the equipment to do that. In terms of real estate investing, Freddie, I don't know if you want to jump in, or Jenny, on that one.
Can I quickly jump in before Freddie talks about the investment? In terms of the working from home thing, it is actually affecting the industry to the extent that if you're someone that deals with the office sector, for example, like I deal with office and industrial, there's been a real uncertainty with all occupiers as to how their staff want to come back to work and what that means for their property requirements. So, and it's very, very much industry specific. So, for example, nobody would have thought that call centres would be able to be operated from home because they're normally quite highly monitored, but some businesses are now setting people up at home, so that's happening. So it means that their office requirements are reducing from anything from 10 to 35 to 50%, which means that there are less businesses wanting offices or businesses wanting more flexible space because they're still uncertain as to how their staff want to work and how their business is going to operate in a post-COVID world. So that will kind of, I think I can segue into Freddie and also Jenny in terms of the new funds, Navigator Fund that's been set up. If you could both sort of comment on COVID impacts on real estate, good.
Yeah, so I mean, from a indirect perspective, I'd actually say that for us, I guess sort of there's a benefit to that since we invest in funds, we can, you know, I would say very easily reduce our positions if we need to. But it is just been a matter of, you know, speaking to the different funds that we are invested in. Some of the funds are, you know, specifically office funds, but they are talking about, you know, reviewing their strategies as well. Like as Freddie mentioned about, you know, having a very big focus on sustainability. We remain in contact with them about, you know, rent collection figures and stats. And then also in terms of the future of office space, you know, checking in with the funds to see whether their portfolios are future proof. But it's, I would say, of course, the office sector has been impacted, but, you know, vacancies are on the rise in some areas, but we do focus on like prime locations. Many of our investments are, you know, would be like, you know, in central London or, you know, in prime, like central locations, like throughout Europe or in the US as well. But there's also opportunities to then, you know, look at like repricing, invest in funds that, you know, are looking at repositioning office spaces as well. So I think just as much as, you know, there is a lot of risk around it, there really is a lot of opportunity as well.
Freddie, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think what I also just touched on is not necessarily investing itself, but how we work. You know, real estate is a very heterogeneous sort of asset class. You know, no two buildings are the same, and to think that you could get an understanding of the property. Okay, whilst, you know, I do a lot of stuff on spreadsheets, the difference it makes actually seeing something and walking around it is, it just changes how you appreciate it. So what we do will always involve us having to go and see properties. Now, from a work from home perspective, you can't really go and see a property in Bristol if you're working in South Africa. Similar time zone, you could probably manage it, but you know, it just realistically in the long term, it's not going to work. And you know, it's a cliche, the number of people who talk about collaboration, the difference it makes having someone in the team a desk down from me than at the end of a phone call is different. It makes a huge difference because you're there having to look in their diary, trying to find, oh, right, they have a free slot between 9:30 and 10. Okay, I'll try and call them then. And then suddenly actually you find that you spend most of your day on calls and actually you're not doing a lot of, you know, not important's the wrong word, but not getting a lot of productive work done because you spend a lot of time talking about work rather than actually doing the work. So, I'm a big supporter of the office, and I think, we've had over the last few weeks since sort of restrictions have eased in the UK, we've seen, probably 75% of the office in the middle of the week come in, which is brilliant. And it feels exactly what it was pre-COVID. So when you guys do start working, I'd encourage you to get into the office as much as possible.
I mean, it's obviously great to meet people and make connections and to network. And then jumping back to the point about specifically real estate investment, we talked about the office market and its impact, but the flip of that is the logistics market, as Jenny mentioned in her presentation, in that a lot of people have been working from home or furloughed at home. People have been ordering clothes online, food online, and all of things like that. And therefore logistics, which is the buildings in which all of these things would be sourced from or delivered to in the interim, from whether they're coming from Italy or the US, that has really sort of boosted the market. So while offices and they may need to be repositioned, the logistics market is booming. So that's that question. Next question, I guess, is slightly similar, which was how has the work from home virtual employment shift impacted LaSalle? I think we've answered that question. And it says, how has LaSalle managed to capitalize on that shift? Again, I think we've answered that question in terms of some of the funds set up and how we're approaching our sort of asset and investment strategy. So I hope that's answered your question. The next question comes from Joy. I'm wondering why LaSalle has no portfolios in Africa, or is the market there volatile? That's a difficult question. That's one we may have to come back to you on if you sort of send us your details. I don't think it's.
Yeah.
Jenny, do you want to jump in and then I can?
Yeah, so I mean, it's actually a question I have asked, the team before, and I've been told that it's in our indirect team. I've been told that it's not that we would completely not look at Africa at all. It really just comes down to the different types of like risks and balancing the risks and rewards. The other week actually had another South African intern actually in our team, and he did a whole presentation on the South African market potentially for us, because we are also, we'd also look at emerging markets. You'll also look at so on the chart that we had, or the map that we had, it didn't specifically say South America, but we did have some investments in Brazil as well. So it really just comes down to the balance of like the risks. There's also, you've got to consider currency risk as well. But I think the highlights or the main point is that it's not that we would not look at Africa at all, I think. And then we also have JLL that is based in Africa. JLL has offices in South Africa. So I mean, if we ever wanted to do a bit more research on that, we could obviously collaborate with them as well. But from a GPS, that's the sort of indirect team's kind of view.
Okay, ready?
The only thing I would add is Jenny touched on it, it's about risk. And if we're looking at how sort of transparent markets are, places like the UK are the most advanced in that. And, we are, I'd like to think we're sort of custodians of our clients' capital. We've got to make sensible decisions, and, we don't want to expose them into an area where we don't have complete visibility on what's going on. And, that will change over time. That's the only other thing to add. So, in 5 years' time, we may have more and more investments in Africa, just constantly evolving.
Okay, thanks, Freddie. The next question comes from Dylan. Two questions from Dylan, which may be, I think, directed at Lucy, perhaps. Yeah. The first one is, I know what kind of training we can expect when joining LaSalle, for example, being sponsored to study CFA, masters, etc. And the next question is, may I know if you sponsor tier 2 visas for foreign students?
Yeah, so for the training element, I'll answer that first. So for any new joiner at LaSalle, graduate, intern, or professional, you obviously go through an induction process, business induction process that we run, where you get inductions across all of our European business. For the graduates and interns, it is definitely more structured. So for the graduates, we do have more in-depth training on the models that you need to use within fund management. We also, take you out to see our properties, the site visits. and there's a lot more in-depth graduate on-the-job training. In terms of the qualifications, yeah, absolutely. So it really depends which business line you go into. So, for example, debt and value-add investments, again, really a lot of training on the models, and they also, happy to support like CFA, IMC, any qualification that's relevant to the role. Same with the fund management side. So I've had individuals do the APC, CFA, and within finance, we've obviously got individuals doing ACA, ACCA, CIMA. So it's really role dependent, and each graduate program does differ in terms of what they offer. On the training side, on the visas, again, it is role dependent. So we do have a cap on the number of visas that we can offer under our sponsorship. So we typically do only offer those for the permanent roles, and they have to go through, like a vetting process. But absolutely, depending on what role you're interested in, I'm happy to have a look at that. But yeah, we can do it. It's just depends on the role and it getting approved.
Thanks, Lucy. So Anonymous says, when do applications for the summer internships open? I know we said early 22.
Usually in January at some point. They usually open, so I'd say more mid to end January. With applications, we usually have the window open for about 4 to 6 weeks. So they'll be posted on our LinkedIn page, on our careers page. Obviously, I'll be sharing it, with all the different built rounds and different platforms. So happy to send the link around once applications are open.
Okay, thank you. Another question for you, Lucy,
Right.
from Raka, which says, when will internship or graduate programs be available in Europe, as in on the continent?
Yeah, Europe timeline varies dependent on when the rotations finish. So we've only got Munich and Paris. They run a 2-year program in Munich and an 18-month rotational program in Paris. So the graduates join at different points in the year. It's not like a set September start date. Typically, we would be launching probably around March to April time, with individuals joining sort of June, July, or we can take a September cohort. It just really depends on the scheduling of the current rotations, but it's usually around springtime that I'm advertising those roles.
And can I just add as well, some of the internship programs that we're involved in are relatively new, like the 10,000 interns. We're looking into whether or not we're able to offer those on the continent as well. So that is a point that's kind of under consideration at the moment. So, currently there are 2. One of those roles may be also supporting someone in Munich or Paris, or there may be a possibility of another role, question mark. So it's a work in progress at the moment on that point. Hopefully that's answered your question. And then Anonymous has asked, can you kindly elaborate a little on the hiring process for graduate opportunities for you, Lucy?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, normally application process, just to keep high level. So we normally gather applications through our Workday portal, which is CVs. We do ask candidates to do like a psychometric verbal reasoning tests. Now, depending on which business line you're sitting in, if you're in the debt business line and in Europe, the first stage will always be an Excel modelling test, which is usually either 60 or 90 minutes long. If you're looking for a role more in asset management, it might be more of a case study type test. And then we have, different various competency interview rounds. And we sometimes do a more formal assessment day as well. It just really depends on the cohort and the year in which we're hiring. But there's usually a good 4 to 5 step process before making offers within the role.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Next question, what sort of training do you provide for interns? I think we may have covered this already slightly.
Yeah, and maybe Jenny or something, in terms of the on-the-day training, I don't know if you've got anything to add from your intern experience and what you learned when you were in GPS.
Yeah, so with the GPS team, I would say, straight from like my first week, I was just given sort of a pitch book to analyze, and it was very much just to get like the understanding of like my thinking. But everyone, I'd say, in the GPS team is very helpful in that when it comes to like, our models, you can, in fact, for like the last year, one of the senior fund managers actually would have maybe like once every 2 weeks kind of like training with regards to some of the models that like we do at like client level. So there is the availability of that, but I'd say like as an intern, it was a matter of if you wanted to chat to one of the senior fund managers or either like the analysts, there would be, more than willing to go through something with you, whether it's, right there or once off or on a weekly basis. But yeah, I would say.
Okay, and just to add, I think when we have had interns in sort of asset management team, we've tried to find specific projects for them to work on, specific things that we need doing that we may not have had enough time to, they can really get stuck in, really understand more about the business. And obviously it's more about understanding how the business works. So no question's a silly question. And there are all these people there that you can stop and ask what they're doing and why they're doing it. So it's more about getting your sort of fingers in the dirt, as it were, to really understand what real estate investment is all about.
And we also do, some social events as well, so you can interact with the wider business. And you're also set like a project at the start. So you'll work together with the other interns and you present back to senior management on the last day of your internship, like your findings on the project that's set.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that.
I'm just trying to, guys, so just conscious, I'm trying to get through all of the questions.
Oh, yeah.
We've only got about 7 or 8 minutes left. So just to note to everyone, one of the questions has been posted in the chat and we're only answering the questions in the Q&A. So if you want to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A. Next question is from Remo. And he's asked whether there's any specific way that they can be notified about the summer internship program. I think Lucy did mention that it will be on LinkedIn. We don't do, as far as I'm aware, specific notifications other than keeping our LinkedIn up to date to make people aware. Lucy?
Yeah, correct. I don't know whether through the diversity, this group, whether we can share it, I'm not sure, but yeah, it will be on our LinkedIn and careers page.
Yeah. I mean, our details will be there. If you guys want to get in touch and you're interested in roles, then please contact Lucy, contact our business, say how you've sort of got to know us through this particular program, so we're aware, and we can kind of keep a note so that if you haven't responded in terms of the LinkedIn, we can perhaps send a reminder depending on the number of people that contact Lucy. Okay, great. Anonymous, can you please tell us a bit more about the transactions team? That might be one for you, Freddie. Maybe you can elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, of course. It slightly varies across the UK and Europe, which is the only one I can really give a bit of insight into. But in both, we have sort of separate if you have your fund management team, which manages the portfolio, you have the transactions team, which involve individuals who are, their sole role is going out into the market looking for properties to meet our requirements. So let's say we have a requirement for, let's say industrial properties in the southeast of England. Their job will be to go out and source them and try and find deals which would fit into our portfolios. Now, that also happens on the continent as well. So it's a lot more deal focused. It's a lot more, it's quite a lot of financial analysis, and it's got to fit into all our client strategies. So ultimately, if the fund manager doesn't think it's going to sit well, then it's shut down. And at the same time, the transactions team need to get asset managers on board because they can't sort of find a property which the asset manager doesn't think isn't going to deliver what it's going to. They're saying it's going to deliver. So I'd kind of say they're sort of the focus point of transactions, but it's a team effort ultimately when it comes to pulling off purchases and sales.
And I'll just add to what Freddie's saying has said by saying that there's a lot of money in the market to invest. So people need to be a little bit more innovative and creative in terms of how they find and source assets, which is why there's more of a focus on having transactions teams with that time to try and source all these assets, particularly in certain very popular sectors like logistics and so on. Okay, next question. I think we've kind of answered this question already. It's from
Necker, I've just scrolled down. I think there's quite a few similar ones, so I'm happy to maybe send a summary.
Okay, great.
One that can get shared. I don't know.
Yes, that's fine. So time to have the graduate scheme. And then there's what did you want to be growing up? This is actually a question that is put in there. We knew it actually was going to be our final question to come, so maybe we'll come back to that question for everyone, and we'll see if we can answer a few more work specific ones beforehand. It says here, anonymous, how are LaSalle's different regional offices connected with each other? That's a great question. As of this year, we've changed our business strategy in that we've very much become a one Europe business. We've always been connected to our other offices globally. I've worked on projects, for example, I used to collect information for the European set of data for our global AUM. It's obviously pivotal for financial reporting, paying salaries, etc., etc. And I had a lot of liaison with people in our Chicago office and also on the continent as a result of that particular role. Different roles will give people exposure to different people in different offices, but recently, very specifically, we are now trying to work as a one Europe. So most of our project groups, whether it be diversity or sustainability, there'll be people that are involved from all the various different offices, so that there is a proper one Europe approach and there's consistency, not just in terms of how we report, how we approach and how we deliver performance for our clients. So hopefully that answers your question. Another question from Karthik here. I'm just wondering how involved clients are in investment strategy. Would there ever be a situation where a client doesn't want you to pursue a certain investment? Freddie, can you answer that question for us?
I think the answer, it varies. So a lot of our mandates is what we have full discretion on what we're going to invest in. Now, in practice, you wouldn't go and invest £200 million or £50 million without the client okaying it. So the way the process works is we set the strategy at the beginning of each year, or at least on the separate accounts I work on. We present it to the client, we discuss it. It's quite a long call. It's sort of half a day going through all the details, which properties we want to sell, what we want to buy, and it explains all our reasoning. And on that call is the fund management team, we have the research and strategy team, we have senior business leaders. So I think the answer is it's rare that a client says, and I've never had it in my experience, that the client doesn't want us to pursue a certain investment. We have had instructions before to sell a property owing to a particular credit exposure that the client had to a company elsewhere in the wider portfolio, which was fine, but never had an experience where a client says no to what we're investing in. But I'd just say, we do a lot of work into what we're going to choose to invest, and we'll only ever present something we have full conviction in it. And clients pay us and use us because of our real estate expertise, and they have to trust us in that regard.
Okay, there's a few more questions. I'm not sure I'm going to get through them all. There's a question about COVID-19 and whether that's affected client relationship management, which if you, I guess, put some questions either in the chat or otherwise, we'll try and come back to you on that separately. They've asked us all why all the asset classes have we decided to develop our careers in real estate. Again, maybe a question to be answered later, because that might take all four of us quite some time to answer that question. And then there's a question about whether LaSalle offers placement years or part-time postgrad roles, part-time roles for postgrad students. Lucy can also answer that question separately, and we'll try and type an answer in at the end of the session. It says, are summer interns allowed to join the company immediately after their internship has passed? It is an internship in terms of creating exposure to the company, but it's not a graduate program where there's an automatic role. So it's about giving you exposure and the contacts and networking. And thereafter, there will be roles that would have to be applied for. Have I answered that accurately, Lucy?
Yeah.
And then I think our last question, other than what we want to be when we're growing up, is how many roles can we apply to at LaSalle? So if you think your skill set applies to more than one area, I'm pretty sure that you can apply for more than one role if you think like I said, your skill set is applicable and that team would think that you could work across both. But we have people, example, Freddie, who's worked in our asset management team and has also worked in our fund management team. So you can have transferable skill sets. So that is a possibility, and you obviously would be picked if you were a suitable candidate for the role that they thought most suited your skills.
Exactly, yeah. And actually, when we're looking at CVs, just to finish on that point, yeah, we do look at candidates and think, oh, actually, they may be better suited to this role over that role. So we are thinking more holistically on the interview.
And our last question, a quick one-word answer from everyone, really quickly. What did you want to be when you were growing up? And let's start with Lucy, seeing you're on the screen first.
I actually want to be a policewoman. I actually did study criminology at university, but here I am in HR, in a real estate business. So there you go.
Okay, one-word answers, everyone. So we've only got like a minute. Jenny, what did you want to be growing up?
I wanted to be a newsreader.
Okay, ready?
Cowboy.
Love that. Love that. And me, it was either a singer or a lawyer. Very different. Both like putting themselves out there. Okay. We're coming to an end now. I really hope you all enjoyed getting to know a bit about LaSalle, and I hope our presentation was useful. Don't forget, applications for our graduate and summer internship programs will be opening in early 2022, and applications for the 10,000 Black Intern scheme that we are participating in are open now. And please refer to the links that Lucy talked through earlier. Details hopefully will be in the chat box now. Many people have been asking about recordings. All of our sessions are recorded and added on the Skills Workshop website after the session. So please go back and have a look. And don't forget, you can still register for all of the Skills Workshop upcoming sessions with only 31 more firms to go. Everyone will see you tomorrow for the team from the Federated Hermes. All that's left to do now is to thank our speakers. Thank you, Lucy, Freddie, Jenny, and me. Please connect with us on LinkedIn, send us emails, and follow the Skills Workshop on LinkedIn for the latest updates. Like, comment, share. We're here to help. You've been fun. Thank you so much, everyone. Until next time. Take care, everyone. And any questions we didn't answer, please, you can send them through to us on LinkedIn or otherwise. Okay, great. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.